opportunity from you and your staff to share during National Small Business Week my story. My name is Erica Benfield, and I'm a Puerto Rican moved stateside at just 6 years old. Like many of us on this panel, we came here for the American dream. That's not the only start to my story. It goes back one generation back. My grandfather was a prisoner of war in Korea for 2 years, a Borinquenier. And when I saw what you and your administration did in returning the bodies to his comrades and others who couldn't make it back on their own, it meant a lot to me. We thank them for their service. Like my grandfather, my family also taught me great work ethic. And with the moral support of my husband, back in 2008, I started my first brick and mortar business. 2008, you know that year.
Good.
The crash.
That's right.
During the Obama administration, there were hardly any loans for a business like mine. I didn't qualify. But it was tough, but we did it. I had an intern and myself, and we started in less than 500 square feet. 12 years later, Florida Living Quarters, FLQ Interiors, thanks to you and your administration, qualified for our first SBA loan. That 500 square foot store is now 5,000 square feet, 10 times the size in 12 years.
Wow.
Doesn't end there. I signed an exclusivity to sell only American-made blind shades and shutters. I said no to China. I will not sell Chinese products in my store. Last year, in 1 year, we saw 300% growth. When COVID-19 hit, we were the second quarter into our newly expanded showroom. And we had to make tough choices. I still remember the words from Congressman Waltz, "Keep pushing, the second wave of PPP is coming." And thanks to you and your administration, we qualified not only for the PPP loan, but also for the SBA loan forgiveness for 6 months. It saved every job, even our intern from the local college. Mr. President, I want to thank you personally because I feel that you've done more than what you promised. You say promises made, promises kept, but you did more than that for a business like mine. But it doesn't end there. Like you, in 2016, I ran for office for the first time and was elected as the first Latina, Hispanic elected official in the city of DeBerry. Not one business has permanently closed in our city. And I believe that because we have kept taxes low, we have the lowest crime rate in the state of Florida, and our people help each other. Under the leadership of Governor DeSantis, we are investing and bringing more people to Florida. Now, I'm not a polished politician. I'm probably more nervous than anyone up here on this panel because it's only been 4 years, but you do a really good job, Mr. President. I invite you to visit DeBerry and Volusia County, again, the home of NASCAR. And let me tell you, the Beast makes one hell of a pace car because I was there. I don't like heights, and I strapped in my seat and was there for that beautiful patriotic moment, high up in the bleachers, greeting you into our county. I hope you can remember me and my story, because I will never forget this day and the opportunity to thank you in person. And by the way, today is my 16-year-old son's birthday, Connor, and I ask you to wish him a happy birthday because he's sharing his mom in an effort like you to keep America great again. It's today. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Great job. Thank you very much. Please.
Good morning, Mr. President. It's a great pleasure to see you here in sunny Florida. My name is Juan Gers. I am electrical engineer. I run a company here in this beautiful state. We work worldwide, actually, in more than 45 countries from here. We also have operations in Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. I have to say first that our company really received a wonderful help, you see, from the central government. And it was not promises, it was true. Actually, the PPP program, the SBA program, you see, helped us a lot to keep our employees. And actually, we keep all our employees and will keep them if you stay in office. Let me say that. I have to say also that as Colombian, I am American Colombian citizen. I was Deputy Secretary of Energy in Colombia, and I had the privilege to work directly with President Uribe, that you know that he is unfairly under house arrest. Actually, I want to mention that because Colombia is a beautiful country, you already mentioned that, and we need you to help the country to avoid being taken into communism. I want to say also that I am the president of the Colombian American Chamber of Commerce here in Miami, and all the companies that we support, which are established here, have been also helped a lot by the government. The government that you are now presiding, and you know, thanks to your help, thanks to your determination, you know, with the small businesses, really, all of them are doing, I would say, pretty well. I haven't seen none of them really going crashed. And finally, I want to say that I cooperate with the Department of Commerce, in particular with the DEC, which is the District Export Council. I am a member of the directive board there, and I can see, and I can say both, that actually they are helping a lot American companies to survive. So, Mr. President, we are extremely grateful, you know, because of, thanks to your administration, we are doing fine. Now, we need you to be 4 more years here.
Yes.
You know, and not only for America, for this beautiful country, for our country, but also because you are the wall against the communism, perhaps in the rest of America, in the rest of Latin America. Mr. President, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And please, win this win again, you know, Mr. Biden.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You know, I used to say, and I meant it, but I didn't know it had such meaning, that we could be a Venezuela too. You know, Venezuela 15 years ago was a very wealthy country, and a very, very wealthy country, prosperous, talked about all over the world, one of the wealthiest, and just looked like it had a tremendous future. And then all of a sudden, they went with a different ideology, and right now we send water, we send food. They don't have anything. They don't have medicine. They literally don't have water. And they have oil, so it's not just the oil. I mean, they haven't done anything right with the oil. They don't know what is happening in that country. That country is a total disaster. It could happen. It could happen, because if you look at some of these people that you see with the storefronts and breaking down and the riots and everything that's going on, it's the same ideology. That's what happened with Venezuela. One day it was gone. It was just gone. And so, it could happen here. This would be a Venezuela on a major steroids, okay? This would be a Venezuela that would be a very large version of it, but it could happen. And a year ago, I started saying that 2 years ago. It could happen because I'd see the thinking. I'd see some of this thinking, and I'd say, that could actually happen. That could actually happen, but we're not going to let it happen. It doesn't happen. With me, it doesn't happen. But you put the wrong people in office. You put the wrong people in office. It could happen. It could happen rapidly. Okay, let's go. Claudia.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today and this wonderful panel. My name is Claudia Rigo. I'm from Honduras.
Good.
I moved to this country, the land of the free, as I said, 18 years ago, 2002. And I married a wonderful man, have two wonderful kids, and we both had a background in manufacturing. So we decided to start a business here in the United States and also in Honduras. We did both. But in 2015, when you started running for president, that you started promoting the Made in USA and Made in USA, we say, this is the moment. It's coming. So we decided to start, take the risk and do some investment here in buying some equipment and taking advantage of the tax cut that we had in buying equipment.
Right.
That helped us a lot because we thought it was the right moment to move and start investing like in high equipment, because what we're doing is printing fabrics and clothing. Okay, our business name is Designers Manufacturers. We created that business back in 2016. So we started bringing more equipment, getting ready for what is coming. Okay, and now after your 3 years of almost 4 years of presidency, we notice how everything is coming back right now, how businesses were booming, even right now with all these problems that we have with the COVID. We notice how many factories and businesses are calling us that they want to bring their business back to America. They say, we don't want made in China. We want to do products. Yes, this is something that we receive, not every day, but every week, Mr. President, we receive calls from different companies that they want to say, we want our products made in USA. We don't care if we have to pay more, but we want to manufacture here. So that's why we took the chance and we said, okay, let's add manufacturing, let's add sewing, let's add cutting. So we added more to our businesses, and now it's so much business that we're getting from overseas and also local business that we don't have enough. We have more demand than we can to hire people. Like we're lack of personnel right now. Mm-hmm. We need more people because in this business that we have right now, which is manufacturing, this business was gone long ago in the 80s when all this CAFTA and NAFTA and all these agreements, right. All these businesses were lost. Everything left, and so the people that we need right now need the training because nobody knows how to do this. Nobody knows how to do the sewing, the cutting, right. all the engineering part that we need. So we're trying to train people now, but we're willing to do it because it's so much demand that we have right now. Good. That we're willing to do that, and Made in America is excellent. Thanks to you, Mr. President.
Well, a very big thing, because you mentioned it, but we terminated one of the worst trade deals ever made anywhere, I guess, NAFTA, mm-hmm. and we now have USMCA, Mexico, Canada, and it's a fantastic deal. You'll see that just kicked in, and everyone said that couldn't be done. There's no way to get rid of the NAFTA deal. It was a terrible deal. We lost so much business to Mexico and so much business to Canada, and I was able to get that done. We've got it actually passed, and it's USMCA is now the deal, and it's great for our country, and it's going to keep our businesses in our country, and it was a great achievement. Please go ahead. Yeah. How are you?
Is it on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. First, I want to say it is an incredible honor to be here today, and thank you for listening to my story. I want to thank also Latinos for Trump for what they're doing in the state of Florida. there's a big movement in Florida. We're all for you. And we're working hard to bring the Latino vote and to win the Latino vote in the state of Florida. So I want to thank you for listening to my story. My name is Carla Salvatierra. I came from Nicaragua in 1987. I was 16 years old. I came with 2 sisters, no parents, with nothing other than the dream to build an American dream and to escape communism and the fear of everything we lost. I saw my country change in a few years. When people say it's not going to happen or it would take forever to change, that's not the reality.
Right.
It happens quick. I saw it. I saw it coming. I am very involved, and I'm volunteer for Latinos for Trump because I see it. I lived it. Nobody can tell me the story. I lived the experience. When I came to the United States, I didn't speak the language. I started from the bottom. I worked at Burger King, Winn-Dixie. I lived in Miami for about 7 years. And then I relocated to Orlando, Florida, where I obtained my real estate license in 1995. I went into the timeshare industry, and I worked in the industry for 15 years. I held different positions from sales to trainer to director. And in 2009, I decided to join my husband's company, Tax and Accounting, Tax on Inc. And at the same time, I started doing general real estate. And presently this year, I'm developing homes in Osceola County, Florida. 2 years ago, we decided to go into a partnership in a restaurant, a small family-owned Italian restaurant in Orlando. The restaurant was thriving. Economy was amazing. A lot of our business came from the tourism industry, timeshare, hotels. And in the last few years, since you've been the president, it's been the best few years in our business. And when COVID hit, our restaurant suffered. We were forced to shut down. But thanks to your brilliant idea to help small businesses with the PPP program, we were able to keep all our employees and find ways to make our business grow locally without depending on the tourism industry. And we were able to keep all our employees. Our business is doing well today.
Good.
And we are hopeful, and we know that with you as our president for the next 4 years, we're going to do 10 times better than we did before.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good.
I have 4 children. One is a veteran from the Navy, one's a veteran from the Air Force, one is active duty in the Navy, stationed in Virginia, and I have, my youngest is a school teacher. She teaches U.S. history and civics. I want to thank you for what you do for our military, our veterans.
Thank you.
Our teachers, our police officers, our first responders. You care, and it means a lot to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I also want to thank you for what you've done for Israel. I converted to Judaism. I converted to Judaism 6 years ago.
Oh.
Israel means the world to me. And you've done more for Israel than any other president ever. And I can't think of anyone better than you to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for what you've done in the region.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Beautiful. Congratulations. That's a beautiful job. And the restaurant will be open, and you'll be very successful with it very soon. It's coming back very rapidly. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Mr.
it.
President.
Okay, please.
Buenos dias. Good morning, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for hosting this round table. My name is Hiram Terrell. I'm a former banker from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I've been living in Central Florida for the last 20 years. I have 5 children. I have 4 grandkids. I run a family business, which is El Cilantrillo restaurant, you know, that I opened it with my wife, Diane, that is just on the audience today. El Cilantrillo was created out of a great need. When I was in corporate America, I used to go out to lunch, and I couldn't find, you know, the great taste from my country, from Puerto Rico. So we decided to open in 2017 our first location in Kissimmee, Florida. And with the success of our first location, we opened in the heart of Orlando, our second location, 3 miles from the airport. So we have 60 employees and have them able to keep them because of the PPP program. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Once we're allowed to open, we quickly pivot to create family meals and created partnership with delivery companies like Uber Eats and DoorDash, and happy to share that that part of our business has grown by 50%. So the CARE Act was critical for keeping our economy afloat. Thank you, Mr. President, for keeping our small business top of mind. Last but not least, Mr. President, my heart is with my beloved island of Puerto Rico. Although I don't reside there, but my parents do. My dad is a Navy veteran, U.S. Coast Guard veteran too. I wanted to thank you for providing billions of aid and strong support to help Puerto Rico recover from devastating natural disasters and to rebuild the infrastructure. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Great job.
Also, thank you, Mr. President, for bringing back pharmaceutical manufacturing in Puerto Rico. That meant a lot to us. I remember when I was in banking, I used to be on that, department, manufacturing, and that hurts us a lot, the economy. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
We'll take care of it. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Carolina Ferreiro, and I came from Havana, Cuba, 36 years ago. I came at the age of 6 with my parents and my little sister, fleeing, obviously, the horrible Castro regime. This country is that gave us the freedom that we wanted to thrive. It's where our family grew our faith, and we dreamed of a better generation to come. Our family business is Pharma Natural. We make the best vitamins in America here in Miami Lakes, Florida. And this year, with the CARE Act, with the tax cuts and the Job Acts, we were able to expand, give back to our employees, add jobs. But then COVID came, and everything was uncertain. But with your quick actions and your awesome leadership, Mr. President, we were able to get PPP and save many jobs. As a result, we answered your call when you said to the private sector, help, so we stopped making some vitamins and we started making some hand sanitizers for our first responders. Although we manufacture here in the USA and made in USA, we still, for the last 18 years, our company has depended on China for the components and for soft gels and gummies. This year, we're taking the leap and we're expanding our operations, and we're bringing gummies and soft gels to our manufacturing facilities, so we no longer can depend on China. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Great job. Fabio?
Good morning, Mr. President. I am honored and humbled to be a part of this very distinguished table, especially with all our guests. I know Cubans told Venezuelans, be careful with Maduro. Venezuelans are now, and Cuban Americans are telling Colombians, be careful with Petro. We hear you. We hear you. My name is Fabio Andrade. I'm a Colombian American, and I'm a Uribista, a true believer, like many Colombian Americans in Florida, of former President Uribe, who is the wall in Colombia to start Castro Chavismo that has been trying to take over our country and is moving to the United States. We appreciate and want to thank Vice President Pence for his support to Uribe by tweeting that he should be able to defend himself in freedom. There is a real threat in Colombia with the leftist senators and terrorists that are in Congress, especially Petro, an ally of Maduro. Not only is he supporting Biden, but he also has people in Miami that are participating in demonstrations asking for votes for Biden, and is constantly attacking those of us who support your re-election, Mr. President, for 4 more years. In addition, former President Juan Manuel Santos, the man that gave impunity to the FARC terrorists in the so-called peace process that was supported by Obama-Biden administrations, is calling for demonstrations and arrests to weaken President Duque's government. Santos has a U.S. visa. He lives here. Now, for the business matter at hand, I have many others have visas here that should not be here. But anyway, now the business matter at hand, I'm in the commercial airline business for 30 years, and I've been able to have my dream to work in the aviation industry in New York, California, and now here in Florida. I was assisted by the PPP program, not only to save my job, but many others in our community. I have a non-for-profit organization, America's Business Network, that we were able to assist 107 companies, and many more people received that assistance, Mr. President. When they knew I was coming for this meeting, they wanted to say thank you, and I'm the voice for them to say thank you because you really are surviving small businesses in our community. Thank you very much. Talking about Latino entrepreneurship, Hispanic entrepreneurship, there's 2 men in this forum that have acquired a home-based airline that filed for Chapter 7, Miami Air, that services the Department of Defense and had laid off 350 people here in Miami. We're working hard with due diligence with the Department of Transportation, with the FAA and the Treasury to get the 350 employees back to work. We already hired 30, our first plane coming at the end of this month, and 6 more to come very quickly after that. Mr. President, the Airline Cares Act, as an aviation person, is key to the industry, but it's key here in South Florida for Miami Air to bring those employees back to work and continue to service the Department of Defense. Mr. President, Colombian Americans in Florida have been working closely with our county census chairman, Commissioner Steve Bobo, to count the estimated 1 million Colombians in Florida, of which, Mr. President, 58% are U.S. citizens and are issue-based voters who do not want the leftist socialist government in the United States. Our business people that are here with us today also are very grateful and are very optimistic, Mr. President, with the nearshoring program and the America's Crescent program to support our companies, especially here in Florida as well, and our allies like Panama and Colombia. It's an excellent program, and let me congratulate you, sir. We are looking forward for this implementation and partner up to assist those projects of the nearshoring program. Those 3 key issues about Colombians, Mr. President, Colombian American, is key to mobilizing a community, and they're out there working, and we're going to get you reelected for 4 more years, Mr. President, no doubt. I have a small token. This is a hat made by Colombian artisans. As you see, it's Trump 2020. Yeah. This is our symbol out there. We're working for you in the campaign and getting you reelected. This is made by hand. It could be folded, you could put it in your pocket, it forms back again.
That's okay.
We honor if you accept
Thank
it,
you
Mr.
very
President, and Trump, 4 more years.
So, 4 years ago, we were elected. I didn't think it was a surprise because I saw the crowds, I saw the spirit. We had tremendous spirit, incredible spirit, actually. And it was something special. That was the most exciting night, the evening, that beautiful November evening, right? And I actually think now, and I used to say, well, that was really important, but this one's going to be equal. It's really not. This is going to be a more important election. And I think it's going to be an even bigger victory. And, you know, we were talking about bringing the country together. And we were doing that because people were calling. We were so successful. I mean, even now you have all these records for Hispanic Americans, Latinos, all records. We have tremendous records. But just before the plague came in from China, they should have stopped it. They should have stopped it. But just before it came in, people were calling me, Democrats were calling me, they wanted to get together. It was happening because we had the best job numbers, we had the best businesses, we had the best everything. We've rebuilt our military. By the way, our vets are in great shape now. Our vets are fantastic. Veterans' choice, accountability, so many things. But we did things that nobody ever thought were possible and did them pretty quickly over a period of 3 years. And nobody's done what we've done in 3 years, 3.5 years. But then the plague came in and we had to close it up, but we had to rebuild it, and we saved millions of lives by closing it. But now we're rebuilding it. It's going much faster than before. But I can tell you, it was all coming together. People say, how do you get them together? I said, success. We were there. It was all happening. And then China sent us the plague. But it was all happening. And now it's happening again. And that's exactly what we're doing. But I just want to thank this community. I want to thank so many of the champions. You have some great people out in the audience, friends of mine, a lot of friends of mine, and somebody I have great respect for because I respect when somebody is the best at what they do. I want to thank Jorge Masvidal for being with us. Jorge Masvidal. When is your next fight, Jorge? Your next fight is a biggie. When is that? Well, work it. Get plenty of money, okay? Get plenty of money, but work. But definitely have it because I want to watch it, okay? We'll be watching. We'll be rooting for you. But thank you for being here, Jorge. You're really a great champ. You're great at what you do, and it's right up here too. And don't let anyone ever think it isn't. But I want to thank everybody for being here. And Max, thank you very much. Great job you've done. Great job. We will go on. We're going to win. We're going to have 4 great years. I think next year is going to be one of the best years we've ever had. It's all heading in that direction. And I will never forget our Hispanic American community. It's just been with me. Even 4 years ago, we did very well. And with the Cubans, we were at 90%. Now I think, I don't know, is it possible to be at 100%? But we've always done well, but now it's really reached a new level. I will never forget you, and I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
And that was President Trump in Florida doing a roundtable for his Latinos for Trump event. He has a really big schedule today. He's going to Georgia next, then he's going back to D.C., then to Virginia. A lot of events. He's going all the way until midnight tonight. We will have full coverage for you here on News Now from Fox. But we want to get to another story going on happening this weekend. If you don't really have any plans or you're thinking about what could I be doing this weekend, maybe you want to look up to the sky and see the moon, because NASA is hosting a really cool event that everyone can participate in. It's the International Observe the Moon Night happening this weekend, and we're going to get some details right now. We're going to bring in Molly Wasser from NASA to kind of explain to us all what is going on. Molly, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So tell us, what is this event, and what could we be looking for with the moon?
So, this weekend on Saturday, September 26th, is International Observe the Moon Night. It's an annual public science festival celebrated in the fall, and it's an opportunity to learn more about our moon, celebrate your cultural and personal connections to the moon. And my favorite part is that knowing that when I am observing the moon, I will be observing the same moon as people all over the world. So, in this time of social distancing, it's a great opportunity to connect.
Yeah, it really is. And now, explain: is there parts in the country where are better for people to view than other parts, or is it pretty much across the board? People are going to get a good shot at this, depending, of course, on the weather.
Yeah, depending on the weather, but across the board, we will all have a great view. And if it is cloudy where you are, we are going to be live streaming on NASA TV and NASA social media. So if you can't see the moon where you are, I actually think it's going to be cloudy in Maryland. You can catch some of the shots on the live stream.
You know, tell us also what's so special about the first quarter moon.
Yeah, so the first quarter moon is actually a better time to see some of the more interesting features on the moon than a full moon, which I found surprising when I first started working at NASA. So the moon has amazing mountains and craters and a really craggy landscape. And a first quarter moon that we can actually see the line between the moon's night and day. So just like here on Earth, when at sunset we see shadows, very long shadows, we'll be able to see those on the moon. So with the naked eye or a pair of binoculars, you can see some really interesting features.
That's amazing, and it's so special when you get to see people just come out and they're looking up to the sky. It doesn't matter if it's for the moon or if there was, a comet recently. We saw that earlier in the year too. A lot of people looking up to the sky, and it's a special moment, especially now in these COVID-19 days where you can look up at the sky and you can all share into that moment. So that's really neat.
I agree. I find that so comforting to be able to look up and know, there's so much out there. Um, and we all live on this shared planet. This is our shared Earth. We have a shared moon. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love astronomy and feel so lucky that I get to work at NASA.
And Molly, I got to ask, do you have any tips? What's a good way to get a good picture of the moon? Because sometimes I see it and wow, it just looks so amazing. Then I take a picture of it and I'm like, doesn't look like that amazing on my phone. Is there a way that you have any tips there?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. So, on our website, moon.nasa.gov/observe, we actually have a photography guide to give you tips on how to take pictures with your phone, with a digital camera. But if you're just using your phone, try adjusting your exposure to the moon. So, holding down on the moon with your finger, and then otherwise it will just appear very bright.
Okay, that's good to know. Awesome, awesome. Now it's 2020 now. I know a lot of people just want this year to be way over, and they wouldn't mind if it's maybe, any year. But 2024, you guys are looking at, because it's going to get really exciting then. You guys are planning to go back to the moon.
Yeah, so we are at the moon now with robotic explorers. We have our Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter that has been orbiting the moon for 11 years now. And in 2024, we're actually going to send humans to the lunar surface for the first time since Apollo 17 left nearly 50 years ago. And we're so excited about that. There's so much more of the moon to explore, and it can help us answer questions about the history of our Earth and our solar system.
Now, what are some of the most surprising things that we've learned so far about the moon through these missions?
For me, I think how dynamic the moon is. It's actually shrinking and cooling, and that causes moonquakes. There are new impact craters forming all the time. And I think what's really surprising, we thought the moon was bone dry, but we've actually found water ice at the moon's poles. So there are craters at the North and South Pole that are very, very cold. They're never lit up by the sun, and there's huge stores of water ice there.
Oh, that's something there. That is something neat. Now, when they're going to for 2024, what are going to be? How many missions are they thinking? I mean, how is this all going to look like?
Yeah, so we have a lot available on our website that shows you some of the details of that. It's called the Artemis program. So if you check that out, you'll be able to see we have a number of different missions, starting with some robotic explorers, and by Artemis 3, having some humans on the moon. So there's a lot that's going into this. We have a lot of people at the agency working and preparing, in addition to some commercial partners as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And now I want to look forward just to almost a month from now, Halloween. I'm hearing that it's going to be a special moon on Halloween, the full moon on Halloween. This only happens every 18 or 19 years?
Yeah, so October is going to be bookended by full moons, October 1st and October 31st. So a blue moon the moon will actually turn blue. It's just the second full moon in a month. So on Halloween, we'll have a nice bright moon lighting up the sky.
Now that'll be good, and it's very fitting on the day of Halloween, and especially since maybe a lot of kids across the country, some cities are already shutting down trick-or-treating. At least they could have something to look up into the sky and and see a nice big full moon there.
I agree. I think if anyone, we were already joking yesterday that we're going to decorate our pumpkins this year in moon phases. So, way to celebrate the moon.
Yeah, there you go. And Molly, can you just give us some more resources if people want to get a little bit more information where we could point them to?
Great. Yeah. So we have everything I talked about and more is on our website, moon.nasa.gov/observe. We have activities, we have maps of the moon to look at some of those lunar features that I spoke of. We have different ways to observe the moon. We interpret observe really broadly. I'm actually going to be making moon phases with some Oreos this weekend. So there's all different types of information you can find there.
There you go. And I got to give one recommendation to you guys at NASA for this event for tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know if you can get the rights to the song, but the song Police, Walking on the Moon, I think that would be just perfect. If you put that under, I think that'd be awesome.
That's a great way to celebrate the moon is make a moon playlist. So I'll make sure to listen to that song.
There you go. There you go. All right, Molly Wasser, thank you so much for all your knowledge and expertise in getting us ready for this weekend to look up in the sky and see our beautiful moon. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, you have a great weekend. All right, folks, we continue to bring you the very latest across the country. We'll definitely be looking up to the sky this weekend. All right, let's go out to another live event that is happening. We're going out to Florida. We got the governor, Ron DeSantis, speaking right now.
Governor, how are large venues like Bucks games, Rays games, how are they impacted by Phase 3?
Well, they're not really impacted because I've supported that. And it's not a question of really government. It's really what the leagues have been comfortable with. I very much support the Bucks having fans. I think what the Dolphins did to start off, I think was really great. The Jags, it's interesting, the Jags, they're allowing fans. They couldn't even sell out limited capacity, partially because I think some of the fans are concerned with some of the things that we've been seeing come out of the league. But so they can operate. Now, I fully understand, and we will work with them. They want to go slower more than anyone, so it's not like they want to have full capacity, but I think you can do much more than what's been done. Outdoor transmission has just not been a major factor. Doesn't mean it can't happen, doesn't mean there aren't things that you can think about in some of these venues, but I'd like to see everyone have fans at some capacity, and then let's build going forward. One of the reasons I really wanted to have the Buck, well, two reasons. One, Tom's the quarterback. You know, everyone wants to watch Tom Brady and Gronk and all these great players. And I'll tell you what, and I don't know how much football I'm going to watch this year, but I definitely watched on Sunday. I mean, I'm going to keep watching them. And so I think people wanted to be there, which was good. But I also want to be able to show we're going to be able to host the Super Bowl in February. We expect to do a full Super Bowl, and we're going to show that we're going to be able to do that. I think they can still do that, and I know there's some issues about insurance and all these other things, and I respect that, and maybe we'll address that after the election here in Florida with the new legislature. But yeah, I think it's important. I also think, you know, we have musicians. They should be able to play, and they should be able to do some of this stuff, particularly on these outdoor venues. You can do it. You can do it safely. Again, right to work. That's uniform now in Florida. And so some of these people, you know, we want to make sure they have an opportunity. I know some have been doing it, but I've had some folks ask me about, you know, certain, you know, restrictions. We didn't really have restrictions, but I think people were just concerned. I think you can get to yes on all this stuff, and there's certainly no legal prohibition for them doing fans. Yes, sir.
Sorry, do you have any concerns that completely opening will lead to another surge?
So here's what I think. We've had way more activity over the last 2 months than we did over the prior two. We've seen big declines. At the same time, this is a virus that has confounded a lot of people. We're prepared if we see an increase. We're not closing anything going forward, but I think if you look at our hospital capacity, if you look at what we did to marshal the latest medications, if you look at what we've done to help with all the PPE and the testing and everything, you know, we have the tools in place that we need. Is there going to be a true second wave? Understand, the Northeast wave was March and April. That was not our wave. Our Sun Belt all went in the June, July. And if you look at the epidemic curves from Los Angeles, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia, it's almost the same basic curve. Arizona is a little bit higher than us in terms of per capita mortality. Georgia, Florida, Texas, pretty close. There were all different reopenings, different policies. And so, you know, and then Los Angeles, obviously, they were one of the most restrictive of any place, and they basically had the similar thing that we had to deal with. So I think we're ready to deal with it. But the question is has there been a second wave anywhere? I think we should prepare for that, but there has not yet been. What you see in Europe is a lot of cases, very few hospitalizations, but in the areas that you're seeing it, those are areas that weren't really affected the first time. So we'll be ready for it. I think people should still understand that the virus, it doesn't go away. I mean, even if you have a vaccine, it doesn't go away because the chance of the vaccine being 100% effective is very small. So it's going to be at a minimum endemic, and so that's why I think it's so important, you know, to focus on the risk to the folks who are especially vulnerable for this. That's going to continue to be an issue. We're going to continue to be supporting our long-term care and nursing homes, and then also some of the things. So yesterday I was with the president, and anytime you get near them, they make you do a test. And I say, I'm not symptomatic. I don't need to do it, but they make you do it. Well, there's a new Abbott test that's like a card. You could actually like put it in your pocket, open it up. They do some swab, and it's an antigen test, 15 minutes. They're producing millions and millions and millions of those a week. So that gives us an opportunity to say, okay, it's been the case where if you have like a 20-year-old grandkid, you may not have wanted them if you're 80 years old, although many of the seniors do. I mean, it's interesting. When we did the visitation for the nursing homes, everyone was so happy because it's like, you know, some of these folks were telling us, I want to live to see my family. And when some of the family members came with the PPE and the mask, some of the residents said, take off your mask, I want to see you smile. So sometimes we think we know what folks want and that they're all so fearful of this. I think people have taken proper precautions, but I think a lot of people really want to be able to live. So, but we have the ability, though, if you want, you know, you could potentially have these 15-minute tests for you know, younger people who are going to visit older relatives and really try to use the resources to make sure that the folks who are older can do as much as possible with protections. And so I think we're in a much better position now than we were in March and April, but I think we're even in a better position June. I mean, we built up what we needed to do. We never had hospital capacity overrun or anything like that. We were prepared. Right now, if you look at our hospital capacity, I think we have 24% of all beds are empty and 23% of ICU beds are empty. That's actually not a good thing for hospitals. They want to run these at higher capacity than that. That's much more empty beds than before the pandemic began. Part of that, I think, is just the lagging willingness of people to go in and to seek the treatment they need. So we do want people to go in and do that. But I asked those experts, so we had Martin Kaldor from Harvard Medical School, Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, Mike Levitt from Stanford, who's a Nobel Prize winner. And I said, do you have any concern about hospital overrun, having watched this virus in different continents, different countries, and different U.S. states? Do you think it will overwhelm the medical system? They all said no, no, and no. And remember, when we did the 15 days to slow the spread, the whole reason was to buy time so that the hospitals weren't overwhelmed, which obviously would be bad for corona patients, but also all the other patients. And so I think the U.S. as a whole has clearly succeeded in doing that. I think our hospital system is completely capable of handling it. In fact, if anything, the hospital needs more patients and some of these other reasons, and some of the other health reasons to be able to go. So, but I would just tell people, the fact that you continue to move forward with the economy, it doesn't mean that the virus disappears. And so people should just understand it's something that we're going to have to deal with. But just as all those experts said yesterday when we had our thing, doing that from a fetal position where society flounders, people are out of work, kids aren't in school, that is not going to work, and that's not the way forward for us.
So is this effective immediately? Local mask mandates?
So I don't address it directly. Actually, it's a good point. So what I did do in there is, just as an act of executive grace, all outstanding fines and penalties that have been applied against individuals are suspended. I think we need to get away from trying to penalize people for social distancing and just work with people constructively, put out the what you want, but to impose some type of penalty of either, some actually have jail sentences attached. I don't know if that's actually been done, but I looked at some of those. But all these fines we're going to hold in abeyance and hope that we can move forward in a way that's more collaborative.
So is reopening right now? Is it start the moment that we leave here?
So, yeah, it's effective immediately.
And to be clear, it's full phase 3.
Phase 3.
Full phase
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that's a little bit different from what they had was, because there have been some issues with these bars, what we said to the locals on that is, okay, the bars are status quo from what we have. If you want to go beyond the 50, you can authorize it and do it. We're not telling you have to, but we're not going to stand in the way of that. So that'll be a local decision if they want to try to do more capacity in some of the bars and pubs. And I'd imagine that you will see a difference of opinion on how that shakes out in different parts of the state, which is fine. And I think that working together on that makes a lot of sense.
The video you saw from downstairs, obviously that upset you. How do you envision law enforcement responding to those types of situations?
So what I think is, and as was said, you'll go out and protest until your heart's content. It's your right to stand for what you want. No one is going to begrudge that, even though, I mean, quite frankly, some of the stuff that's said in these protests about the people in uniform I find revolting. I don't agree with it. But nevertheless, that's what the country's all about, to be able to go up there and do that. The minute that crosses over from just peaceful assembly to where you're harassing somebody else or you're intimidating or threatening them, particularly when they're in a public accommodation like a restaurant, or if they're in their residence. I mean, some of these places in like Oregon, you're starting to see some of these groups go into neighborhoods. That is unacceptable. We're not going to allow it. And I think when we did our press conference on Monday, Sheriff Judd and Polk County, pretty plain spoken, he said, sign of a peaceful protest, this is what this is. We all know it. This is not. This is when you cross the line. And I think crossing the line is really when you start harassing or intimidating just private citizens who are trying to go about their business. I looked at those folks. all they're doing is sitting down, having a meal. You know, who knows what's on their mind? Who knows what issues they're having to deal with in their life? And then to have a bunch of people do that, I think it's just unacceptable. That's not the way of life here in Florida. I don't think that that's conducive to having a safe society. And we just can't allow that to happen. So I was disappointed in seeing it. We actually, I mean, once we saw that, you know, we had state resources. We were ready to marshal, and we didn't need to do that, fortunately. But man, it's not a good look for the state. It was not fair to those people who were sitting there just eating. And you really want to live in a society where anytime you venture into public, you can have somebody just come and do that to you. I don't want that. I don't think that that's right.
Governor, did you see the photograph of them giving the protesters the middle finger?
I did not.
Last question. Oh, Governor, I have a question. And it states, it says Rick Wilson is dealing with the election. Rick Wilson is a legal project is claiming that Governor DeSantis has a plan to call the legislation into session after the election and change the winner of Florida if it appears close where Biden appears to win. Is that true?
Who is that?
I guess Rick Wilson of the Lincoln Project. Yeah. That you might.
I don't know who that is, and I think that that's just people putting out a scuttlebutt, or probably someone trying to grift off something. So, okay, well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Governor, what's insufficient about Florida's laws to do with protesters right now?
And that was Governor Ron DeSantis wrapping up a news conference in Florida. Let's give you just a look right now at how the Dow is performing. Pretty much not a lot going on today there on Wall Street, just up about 56 points there in the green. I do want to point your attention right now back out to the Capitol, where in just moments there will be a departure ceremony for the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg. The casket will then come down the steps. You see members of the House that are lining up on the steps right now of the Capitol as this ceremony will be taking place in the next couple of moments. Of course, we will bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox. Obviously a very special moment today as this ceremony took place inside the Capitol. The first woman to lie in state, the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg, who passed away last week. And with that, there will be now a big moment tomorrow for the nomination to replace her. That will be happening at the White House at 5 o'clock Eastern. News Now from Fox will be covering it this weekend, so you can watch that announcement take place at the White House in its entirety, happening at 5 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. We will feature that here for you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. They need you in your spot, young lady. That's right. Follow the rules.
And we will keep an eye on this shot here for you as soon as we see the ceremony begin. Of course, we'll bring it to you right here on News Now from Fox. Always trying to give you the live feeds that are happening across the country. And remember, when they're happening live, it's a good chance News Now is bringing it to you. In the meantime, everybody, while we wait for this ceremony to begin, I want to take you out to Chicago, where the governor and other local leaders coming to announce a federally qualified health center to support healthcare partners across Illinois. So let's listen to that right here while we do wait.
Individuals directly by working with providers to sort through these issues. As soon as that comes online, you'll hear more about it from me. Related to this, I want to make sure that all Illinoisans know that if you want a test, it is available absolutely free at any of our state testing sites, regardless of your citizenship or your insurance status. To find a free state testing location near you, you can go to the testing page on the Illinois Department of Public Health website at dph.illinois.gov/testing. I'm going to say it one more time, dph.illinois.gov/testing. If you're uninsured or underinsured or low income or undocumented, no matter who you are, please don't be afraid to get tested. And if you test positive, to get treated for COVID-19. Testing and subsequent medical treatment is free to you. And the Department of Healthcare and Family Services is doing everything that it can to make sure that you're protected from mistakes that providers make that would imply otherwise. Like everyone else, our healthcare providers, especially those like the FQHCs who deliver tremendous services broadly and to all who need it, are challenged and working to do the right thing in these unprecedented times. They are critical to the health of our people in normal times, and this pandemic has only elevated their importance. I'm very proud to support them today and every day. And with that, I'm proud to turn it over to our leader of the state's healthcare infrastructure, someone who is committed to seeing that all Illinoisans have healthcare available to them, and that's our HFS Director, Teresa Eagleson. Director.
Thank you so much, Governor Pritzker. It is such a privilege to be a part of the leadership and your vision for the state of Illinois. Hello, everyone. As the governor said, I'm the director of the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services, the state's Medicaid agency responsible for providing healthcare coverage to over 3 million Illinoisans. It's a pleasure to be here today as we distribute more than $140 million of CARES funding to long-term care facilities, federally qualified health centers, and safety net hospitals serving Medicaid customers. As everyone has said and seen, COVID-19 has impacted certain communities and vulnerable populations very hard, especially Medicaid customers and the providers who serve them. We are grateful to be in a position to use these funds to ease the burden of our community partners as they serve patients. Federally qualified health centers like Howard Brown here, Miles Square, Aunt Martha's, Friends Family Health Center, and Access Community Health, just to name a few examples, are vital parts of the healthcare safety net in our state. As many of you know, FQHCs, to use the acronym, were formed out of a response to the civil rights movement in 1965 to serve the underserved in both urban and rural communities. Said another way, these community partners treat people regardless of their ability to pay or insurance level, no matter the color of their skin or their immigration status. They are on the front lines of the fight against COVID, and the CARES payments scheduled to reach their accounts this week will provide a critical infusion of cash to help them continue that fight. The first round of this money will go a long way in covering COVID-related costs, as the governor said, for things like hazard pay for direct care workers, personal protective equipment purchases, and other expenses that our community partners never imagined 6 to 7 months ago. The pandemic has put a spotlight on major health inequities, causing communities of color to be disproportionately affected by the virus. We want to ensure these payments go where they are needed the most. This week's $140 million disbursement includes nearly $60 million directed specifically to Medicaid providers in disproportionately affected areas. In addition to the payments released this week, next week we will launch an online portal for these providers and more to apply for additional funding. Providers should watch our website for more details about that portal. And I really must take the opportunity to emphasize that we need to continually work to improve access to health care in every community and across all providers. Throughout this pandemic, we have worked diligently to improve access to care. We worked to quickly enroll newly eligible individuals into Medicaid and to keep them continuously insured so they didn't have to wait months before their coverage began, and they had the certainty of coverage, as David said, during this tumultuous time. We expanded telehealth capacity throughout the state and continue it to make sure that people can continue to receive the care they need, even though they couldn't see their provider in person or it wasn't safe to do so. And we worked to connect Medicaid and uninsured individuals to COVID testing. But this pandemic has laid bare the depths of disparities which exist in our communities. That is why we need to focus on transforming our healthcare delivery system to ensure we are providing care that is person-centered, culturally competent, preventative, holistic, and available to those with less means, the same as it's available to those with more. I look forward to working with the providers represented here today, as well as many more to achieve those goals. Before I go, I want to quickly thank the Healthcare and Family Services team for all their work during this pandemic, including working diligently to get these CARES payments distributed. There was no playbook, and we swiftly built a new system to not only ensure the federal accountability required for these funds, but also make sure that the money got to the places where it was needed most. With that, I thank you and invite the governor back to the podium.
All right, folks, we are going to the departure ceremony right now for the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg.
Ready, step. 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 Forward, march. Forward, march, push, push.
What's up, John?
And that was the departure ceremony for the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg at the Capitol. You're watching News Now from Fox as they honored really a beacon of light for the highest court in this country. The Justice Ruth Ginsburg overcame so many obstacles to get into the position that she was in. Grew up in a time where they said, women, why are you clogging up what a man should be doing? Those were the type of issues that she had to break through, those barriers she had to bust through to get to the moment, to get to the spot that she was in. And she definitely did that. Served on the highest court for 27 years. And then passing away last week. It was last week, Friday, that we got the news of her death at 87 years old. Well, we have a little time here. I do want to show you some of the remarks from President Trump off the top. We didn't get to this right away. We missed this part, so I want to show that to you from Florida.
Hey, where is Jorge? I don't want to fight with him. Where is he? Where is he? Stand up, Jorge. Stand up. There he is. That's how fast this knockout. I watched this. He was fighting this young superstar. He's going to be great, right? They would tell me how great he is. Man, I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but he was supposed to be the future of the UFC, but he had to go through this guy right here. Didn't work out too well, did it, Jorge? What a champion you are. Thank you. And that was the fastest. What was it, like about a second? It's 2 seconds. You ran across the ring, and the guy was gone, and that was the end of it. Did they have to pay you for that evening or not? Because, 1 second is not. That's a good return. Great to have you. Big fan. Thank you, man. Thanks. Great. So I'm thrilled to be back at Doral. I never knew I was going to even see it again. This is nice. You know, I bought it before I became president, and I had no intention of being president. I was enjoying my life. I had a great life, like Jorge has. Just keep winning, though, Jorge. It's important, right? But I will say, and then I said, let's do this. And I said, I have all these great places. I don't know if I'll ever see them again, but we have these beautiful ballrooms, and it works out well. It can even hold all of that media back there. That's a lot of people this early in the morning. But it's about Hispanics and the relationship that we have. We have incredible relationships. And you've seen the polls. The polls are having me up over a Democrat, which is, I think, unheard of. And it should really, I don't think it's going to be unheard of anymore. That we're doing Thank you. And we recently were in Arizona. We got a reception like it was incredible. But literally, I mean, we are doing better than the opposition. Now, the opposition has not been good to Hispanics at all. He's been very bad to Hispanics. And we'll go into that, and we'll do some questions later. We'll have a little fun. But I'm very happy to be back at Doral. It's great. It's a good location, right?
Yes,
very
sir.
good
Excellent.
location. And at least I see my property, even if for just a short period of time. But
That was just some of the remarks there. We'll get to President Trump in just a little bit, but I want to take you to some of the sights and sounds that we saw just moments ago at the Capitol. And news now from Fox does continue honoring a legend, honoring and remembering the late Justice Ginsburg. This was the scene earlier this morning at the Capitol as members of Congress paid their final respects to the late Justice Ginsburg, who for 27 years held the highest seat there on the court there as on the high court as she passed away last week at the age of 87 years old. Here's the event that we have for you in just a little bit. We are going to take you out to Philadelphia for the ringing in of 100 years of votes for women. This event happening at the Independence Square in Independence National Historic Park. We're going to bring that to you in just moments, everybody. But to give us some context of everything that we are seeing, let's bring in our very own Ron Hoon. Ron, with some great context with the Supreme Court Justice and everything that we've been seeing this week. Ron, thank you so much for coming on here. We appreciate it.
You bet, Mike. On our local Fox station in Phoenix, I was just chatting with our morning anchor. We were discussing, Troy Hayden, we were discussing that you expected to see maybe more of a fight developing in Washington in this battle over a new justice nominee, reportedly. It really hasn't materialized very much. Matter of fact, at the beginning of the week, there was some talk about a possible impeachment move aimed at the president, and then Nancy Pelosi said something along the lines of that it wasn't worth it or he wasn't worth it, something along those lines. So is there still to be a battle, or is it a fait accompli when it comes to this new Supreme Court justice? Now, as you know, it looks like the odds-on favorite is Amy Coney Barrett, who at the age of 48 years old could potentially be an influence on the court for many, many decades. Although there are several other names, as you know, Barbara Lagoa and others, that have been floating around as possible nominees. The president said, I think it was about Tuesday of this week, that he had, for the most part, made up his mind as to which direction he wanted to go. And beyond that, we really don't have too many clues. So will it be Judge Amy Coney Barrett, or will it be someone else? Her name certainly circulated last time around when Brett Kavanaugh was the nominee. Now, you just wonder if anybody who is strongly opposed in Washington to the president moving forward with this process, if perhaps by virtue of the fact that this is a week that is primarily meant to honor the life and legacy of Justice Ginsburg. If that's really more what's going on, that there may still be a real battle shaping up, or perhaps not. I mean, one of the decisions you have to make is you take a look at these last few weeks where everything is hypersensitive as we get closer and closer to the election, because everything has to be viewed through the prism of November 3rd. So, you may take a look at it if you're in the opposition to the president and say, maybe this is a fight that we certainly have to, be involved in, but maybe not make it the primary issue in these, frankly, Mike, the closing days of the argument to the voters. You may want the voters to still be thinking about something else, whether it's the president's handling of the pandemic, whether it is what's going on in the economy. With early voting, there are people right now who are, if they are still undecided, are having to make up their mind literally just in the coming days and weeks.
Absolutely. And Ron, we're showing some of the video from earlier today of the memorial at the Capitol. And yeah, when you really think about Justice Ginsburg and everything that she had to overcome to get to that level where she was at, it's truly remarkable. Living in a time where, when she was at the high universities and the professors were mad that she was taking a spot for men.
Yes. It is remarkable to think where we as a country have come in the last 30 years or so. It's also remarkable to think the impact that she's had, not just on the court, but on the on life in the United States as well. It is so interesting. I think that some people don't realize that. So she was nominated by Bill Clinton in some of the earlier days of his presidency. That goes back to 1993, and the month was August. I think a lot of people don't realize what a fighter she was personally. Yes, she had. She felt a mission to fight for people who were underrepresented. That she felt voices that needed to be heard and represented at the court. But she had a physical and medical fight that just shows you how strong she is. She was nominated to the court in August. Actually, was sworn in August and of 1993, and it was not long after that, in the late 1990s, that she had surgery for colon cancer, and that it went successfully. That was followed up by chemotherapy as well. So this health struggle of hers was certainly something that was not to be dismissed, but was one that she fought and won over and over and over. In fact, she gave an interview, Mike, even with that pancreatic cancer diagnosis. Now think about this. Think about how rare it is for someone to receive a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer and live a lot longer than a year or 2 or 3 or 4. And yet her original diagnosis was in 2009. So she continued to fight it, and I think felt as though, hey, look, I've won every battle that I've had health-wise. I'm going to fight this one and beat it as well. She had given an interview just a couple of years ago in 2018 saying that she felt she was ready for at least another 5 years on the court. She didn't get her wish in that regard, but boy, did she fight right up to the end.
Yeah, she not only fought for herself, but also for her husband, because early on in their marriage, he suffered testicular cancer, and while she was in law school, she had to take the notes for him because he was in law school as well, and while he was trying to recuperate, and luckily he did, but I mean, that's just an amazing story of just pure willpower to do that and not only get your law degree, but help your husband at the same time, who's going through a very bad bout with health.
I really loved the interview that someone did with her a few years back where they were talking about some of the photos that she had, I think, around her home. And she said, there's a picture of Marty, and that is, to me, that's the way I like to remember him. And so then the question was, well, really, how so? In what regard? And it was just that, well, you can see how sort of casually dressed he is and how just content he is as he sits there with a book. He always loved to have a book with him. And so this was a couple that they were so deeply in love. They shared, so many of the highs and lows of life as the years went on. And I think she was just as proud of him as he was of her.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ron. Well, I think this is a fitting time now to go to Philadelphia for this 100 years of women voting event that they are celebrating. I think this is a good time. So, Ron, thank you so much for joining us here and really giving us some nice background as we talk about the late Justice Ginsburg as well. I appreciate it, Ron, for you always joining us.
You bet, Mike.
All right, here we go. And let's go out now to Philadelphia for that live event.
If you want to choose Ruth Bader Ginsburg lying in state in the U.S. Capitol today, the first woman to do so, that's fine. If you're thinking of Ona Judge, who self-emancipated from slavery in President Washington's household a block from here, that's fine. Or if you want to hold close in your mind your own mother, sister, grandmother, that's fine. The point is that it's the inspiration from resilient women that is what matters today. Thank you. And I would like to now introduce Maria Baumesbach from the Washington Memorial Heritage, another resilient woman. We are grateful to the chapel and to the foundation for loaning us this Justice Bell, for loaning it to us on such a momentous occasion, and to Maria herself for being a wonderful partner. Maria, please come to the podium.
Thank you, Cindy, for so eloquently telling the story of the Justice Bell. You continue to be a true partner with the Washington Memorial Heritage to provide education on the strides of suffragists, and we are honored to have the bell here today on museum loan at this historic site. There's much written documenting history about women's suffrage, but very little about the Women's Liberty Bell. So what I'd like to take is a few moments just to give you some information you may not have read or heard about Catherine Wentworth Ruschenberger. She was born in 1853 in Philadelphia to John Langland Wentworth and Martha Emlyn, and she was the oldest of 4 children. At the age of 35, she married Charles Worcester Ruschenberger, but had no children of her own. She lived in Stratford, Chester County, and was a life member of the Women's Suffrage Society of Philadelphia, and she was also in charge of propaganda for the Women's Suffrage Party of Chester County. Catherine was a well-rounded woman of means. Her nieces and nephews were the light of her life since she did not have her own children. But her nieces still tell the story about the time she went to visit them in Long Island, complete with Rolls-Royce, chauffeur, and all of the trimmings, and it made quite a stir in the neighborhood, along with tales of her riding a camel across the sands of Egypt and exotic places visiting them, such as Paris. But like many women today, she was a woman of vision, and who during her travel, noticed injustices for women and many others, and that weighed on her mind. While at home, she saw the Liberty Bell being toured around for freedom, and she thought, why not have a bell for justice? So freedom first, and then justice. So at the age of 62, and a widow, she spent about $1,200 of her own money to have this exquisite bell cast at the Manili Bell Foundry in Troy, New York. She spent another $400 to purchase a flatbed truck with 4 seats, steps to a small speaking platform, and chains on the tires to make it through the muddy roads of Pennsylvania. A woman planned the route, and men and women, let's not forget about the men, drove the truck. The bell quickly became the symbol in Pennsylvania for many, and also was lent to parades in D.C. and Chicago. Catherine died in 1943, and both she and her husband are buried in the old St. David's Church Cemetery in Wayne, Pennsylvania. At the time, the bell was bequeathed to Washington Memorial Chapel in Valley Forge. When it's not on tour, it resides in the National Patriots Bell Tower at the chapel, and thousands come to visit it each year. The bell is expected to journey back home at the end of October, where it will once again visit a foundry for restoration and new carriage so we can enjoy it for the next 100 years. In closing, I'll leave you with this quote from Catherine. "The Liberty Bell was the creation of democracy. The Justice Bell is the completion of democracy." I hope this bell inspires you to continue the great work by these exceptional women we speak of today to make tomorrow a better place for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you all hear me? Yes? Wonderful. I want my message heard around the world. So, if you will follow me. Hello, friends. You'll have to excuse me, but this is not the first interruption I've had to make my voice heard. I am Alice Paul, and for those gathered here today, and those of you who are virtually with us today, I thank you for coming here. It has been a long road. We have made many sacrifices. We picketed the White House for 18 months. You may have heard of us, the Silent Sentinels. We demanded President Wilson hear us and take notice. But we were arrested on trumped-up charges of obstructing traffic and were jailed for 7 months. My will could not be broken. I went on a hunger strike. My friends, starvation.
Well, now I know something about hunger strikes. My name is Dora Kelly Lewis of Philadelphia, and I am also of the National Woman's Party. And may I say that, like Alice Paul, I have been jailed for freedom as a silent sentinel. I have been arrested 5 times. I have served 4 prison sentences. What are you willing to go to jail for? It was not until June 4th of 1919 that the Senate finally passed the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. The amendment was signed into law on August 26, 1920. We, the people, the whole people, women as well as men, are citizens with the right to vote. Proclaim liberty and justice, equality for women, equality for all.
have to turn the question back onto you. Who inspires you?
Well, I'm certainly inspired by the women who took this bell all across the state of Pennsylvania. Could you possibly help me share a little bit about these women? Now, you're also very accomplished at holding signs. So do you think you could do me a favor with those as well?
Of course.
Oh, Dora's helping us as well. Everybody? All right. Once the Justice Bell was cast, Pennsylvania suffragists prepared themselves and the bell for its journey to all 67 counties. Now, hauling a 2,000-pound bell across the state in the summer was no easy task. On what looked more like a barge than a truck, it carted the bell and the coterie of suffragist speakers on a back-and-forth zigzag all across the state. Now, I did a decent chunk of this drive entirely unintentionally a couple years ago, and I can tell you, it was rough, and I had cans of draft latte and a Subaru, and I didn't have a 2,000-pound bell in 1915. So they drove thousands of miles. They struggled with poor roads and bad rain and apparently an enormous amount of mud. But they also found parades. They found rows of yellow flowers and seas of American flags. They found eager crowds waiting to hear the women speak, even at the most unsuspecting of places. They found them at mines in Carbon County, right above Wilkes-Barre. They found them at fairs in Pittsburgh. They found them at a brick-making plant in Paxtonville in the middle of the state. They found them closer to home on street corners in Ardmore. Women, men, and children all greeted the bell and its entourage, frequently numbering in the thousands. Suffragists would climb upon the bell's truck to address them. The persuasive speeches served not just to encourage and persuade the men of Pennsylvania to vote for this amendment, but also to show them what a modern, politically involved woman looked like, you know, like them. In between the raves to support, however, the arrival of the Justice Bell sometimes drew vocal ire of anti-suffragists. But after weeks on tour, these suffragists had become practiced orators, thinking on their feet with appropriate retorts. In Wilkes-Barre, anti-suffragists hung out of windows and jeered the suffragists as they spoke. However, it was not going to catch them off guard. "There are many antis over there," said one suffragist with the bell. "But almost every home is decorated for us. Don't you see? It shows us exactly how fast we move, doesn't it?" As the summer concluded and the tour wound down, the bell came back to Philadelphia for one last jubilant rally. On the evening of October 22nd, the bell made its way up Broad Street. 8,000 suffragists met at Mifflin Street, preparing to walk the route. The lanterns that would light their way hung high above their heads on long poles, illuminated their uniforms. It shed light on their white dresses and highlighted the yellow flowers that adorned the bell and its automobile escort. Lining their way up through City Hall were more than 100,000 spectators. A local suffragist, Annie Heacock, escorted the bell in this one last-ditch effort for the vote. She must have hoped that in just a few weeks, they would have gained the right to vote, and she would be able to cast her ballot for the first time in her 77 years. However, despite the months-long effort of the Pennsylvania suffragists, the amendment failed that November. Disappointed, but not defeated, suffragists took a minute. They picked up their signs once again and got back to the streets to fight for the right to vote. And, of course, Mrs. Harper.
Of course. If I may be so bold to speak a word. Absolutely, be my guest. Why, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Why, hello all. My name is Frances Harper. Now, I know sacrifice, and I know disappointment, and I also know discrimination, but I also know perseverance, and I know about the power of a positive message. Now, I've seen this organization splintered. I've seen ignorance infiltrate its ranks. Now, you all, you speak of rights. I speak of wrongs. Now, ladies, we have traveled a long road together. And one of the things that I saw as we were splintered was us being discriminated against just based on the color of our skin. Now, I did not live long enough to hear that justice bell ring, nor did I live long enough to cast my vote. But I did live long enough to see women of color unite and to uplift their communities through education as well as through jobs and economic prosperity. Now, I stand here today, but we all stand here together as one great bundle of humanity to hear that justice bell ring. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances Harper, and hello to our live and virtual audiences. My name is Ranger Jay, and today I want to share with all of you that at last one great bundle of humanity did come together here on Independence Square for a very special ceremony 100 years ago today. And it really must have been just an incredible moment. 72 years after Seneca Falls, millions of women all over the country finally had the right to vote. Though, of course, for some women, women of color especially, the fight for equal rights was far from over. The Women's Liberty Bell that day, though, was the focal point, just as it is today. It sat on a high platform, approximately where it is now. It was, of course, kept in chains until that afternoon, representing the silencing of women's political voices in America prior to the 19th century. Looking out on the square that day, you would have seen a sea of red, white, and blue, thousands gathered waving American flags. Many of them were future voters. The Philadelphia Inquirer reported that the children stood 10 deep at the event that day, and there were also some important links to the suffrage movement's past. Two of in the crowd that day, as well as 83-year-old Annie Heacock, who had spent her entire life fighting for the cause of women's suffrage. She's someone that knew the famous suffragist Lucretia Mott personally. Pamphlets with instructions on how to vote were being distributed throughout the crowd that day to the many new women voters who would be casting their ballots in a presidential election that was less than 6 weeks away, just like today. There was also an official kickoff at 2:30 with the crowd joining together to do something that we don't really do in our modern age, and that's to join together in a sing-along. I love that detail. It just doesn't happen today. But afterwards, there was a ceremony that involved 48 women and girls, all dressed in white, wearing green and gold suffrage badges. There were, of course, lots of speeches from the mayor, who had actually opposed women's suffrage formerly, as well as the governor and representatives from the League of Women Voters. A woman dressed as Justice in a green robe, sandals, and an oak leaf crown strode out of Independence Hall to unchain the bell. And then finally, at 4 o'clock, Catherine Wentworth, the 17-year-old niece of Catherine Rauschenberger, rang the bell 3 times. She stepped aside. Other women and girls took turns ringing it for a total of 48, the number of states in the Union. And afterwards, with the singing of the national anthem and a benediction, the ceremony came to an end. But in many ways, this was only the beginning of a new chapter in the history of America's experiment with self-government, of our democracy, something that continues into our own time. But now, before we begin the symbolic unchaining, I have a very special request for everyone in our live audience and who are watching at home. Please, for those of you that would like to, raise your right hand and make a promise to generations past. Repeat after me. I promise to seek out all the stories from the past and to uplift the voices of those who have been silenced. I will not let them be forgotten. And now, the moment that all of you have been waiting for. Once the symbolic chain is removed, I invite all of you to raise your voices, ring bells, and make as much noise as you can to celebrate 100 years of the women's vote. Will Cindy and Maria please come forward, and the rest of our participants as well. Hip, hip, huzzah!
Ring the bell. I think I counted 50 rings since we have 50 states now. So thank you all for being part of this program. Thank you for coming to Independence National Historical Park.
All right, so that was the event there in Philadelphia. You heard the bell ringing. You're watching News Now from Fox here as we continue to always bring you the very latest here on News Now from Fox. I want to point this out to everybody that is watching. We are following breaking news out of Tempe, Arizona, where there was a police shooting. Right now, there's an investigation going on right now. Our Rick Davis there is live at the scene and will be giving us an update shortly here. But these are Sky Fox aerials. We just wanted to bring that to your attention. We soon will be getting some updates here. But this is the view here. As you can see, a large police presence right now. And we will be getting an update here for you very, very shortly, right here on News Now from Fox. But you could see a lot of evidence markers already right out there. It is scattered across that parking lot. So we'll keep an eye on this story. That is something we are definitely monitoring for you right now here on News Now from Fox. We also have a ground shot available to us as well. This is Rick Davis's shot that we were talking about. So this is what the scene looks like from his vantage point there in Tempe as we are following this police shooting investigation. Once we get a little bit more details, of course, we will bring that back right out here to you on News Now from Fox. But I just wanted to point that out to everybody. Let's keep it going right here on News Now from Fox. Let's get a little update from Dr. Mike about the very latest on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine joining us on this Friday. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
As we end another week here, I want to get your assessment. Where do we stand with this virus?
Well, a little concerning, to be honest with you, Thomas. We're seeing a resurgence, or what we might call a second wave in Europe. We're seeing increasing numbers throughout this country in a number of states. And to be honest with you, there is concern that there may have been some changes with this virus in its genetic makeup. And so France, Italy, a lot of countries seeing numbers that they haven't seen since the beginning of all of this.
So you mentioned, what more do we know about this possible mutation of the virus?
Well, there is some concern that the virus has mutated a bit. Now, everything on this planet wants to eke out a living, all right? If you think about it, plants do, we do, and viruses do. And so what happens sometimes, Thomas, is the virus will change its genetic makeup so that it can survive better. And what some scientists are seeing is that a newer version of this COVID-19 or coronavirus may be actually more contagious. And we're seeing higher levels of virus in individuals, making it more contagious. And so it's just doing its thing, trying to survive things like wearing masks and washing your hands and socially distancing. That's what viruses do. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
So it's not uncommon to see a mutation, but does that change the vaccine game with a mutation?
Well, it may, and it may also change a number of things. So there are companies working on developing monoclonal antibodies. These are antibodies you develop in a lab that go after parts of the virus. Very, very exciting science. However, if the virus changes, then you may end up with the need to change your armamentarium. What this may do for vaccines is we may need to do what we do with flu shots and have one every year. Time will tell on that.
Yeah, taking the previous strains. I know there's additional reports out of patients experiencing this, what's called a reactivated virus. What's going on here, Dr. Mike?
Well, again, basically what we're seeing is people who have had the virus can get the virus again. It's happened before, rarely happens, but it can. So when you look at this virus, even though you have had it, you need to be aware that you are not protected from getting it again. Now, as far as reactivation, generally what we're talking about are once you get this virus, it can last in the body for a period of time. Most people think about 10 to 14 days, but in some people, Thomas, who have deficient immune systems, it can be longer than that. And it is possible that after an acute infection, some perturbation makes you get sick again. So there's all kinds of ways to look at this, and we're very vigilant in watching our people who have had the virus.
Well, here we are 6-7 months later. We've learned so much about this virus. Still a lot needs to be learned, but I want to talk about some of the symptoms from this virus that we're seeing. I know some patients have reported nightmarish hallucinations during the onset of the virus. Is this impacting certain areas of the brain?
Well, Thomas, that is correct. We know that the virus infects neurons. And what's very interesting, there's some interesting science that people who have a genetic decrease in a particular enzyme are less likely to get a severe COVID-19 infection. However, if they do get that infection and it gets infection in the brain, it can increase the risk of delirium and even schizophrenia type symptoms. And so it's very, very interesting science. We know that this virus does get into the brain. It infects brain cells. We've seen that on autopsy findings, and that can lead to depression, anxiety, and even hallucinations and delirium.
We're also seeing additional cases of COVID-19 related meningitis. I know there's bacterial meningitis and viral meningitis.
Well, Thomas, basically when it comes to infections of the brain, there can be bacterial infections, there can be parasitic infections, and as we're seeing with COVID-19, we can have viral infections, and that's called aseptic meningitis. Now, when it comes to COVID-19, we know that this virus infects cells in the brain. It can cause depression, it can cause damage to the cells, leading to even meningitis, and that's an inflammation of the brain. So we know for a fact that this virus can cause problems with our cerebrospinal fluid and the brain. Now, in some interesting research, they have found that some people have a deficiency, a genetic deficiency of a particular enzyme in the brain. That's good news because it decreases the symptoms of COVID-19, but according to their research, it increases the risk of symptoms of schizophrenia and delirium. So this virus can lead to meningitis, changes in behavior, depression, anxiety, and a significant problem when it comes to the central nervous system.
Yeah, a list of problems here. Where do we stand, Dr. Mike, on Operation Warp Speed? I know the president's projected goal months ago was to have about 300 million doses of the vaccine available by January.
I don't see that happening, Thomas. And once again, everything about this virus has become political in nature. So we're not going to get a vaccine sooner than it's deemed safe. And so even if there are some vaccines that have shown to be safe and effective, I don't see them being mass produced and widely available until sometime in, to be honest with you, mid-2021. So warp speed is going at warp speed, but it has to be in a way that is safe and effective. Nothing has to do with politics.
And we really are seeing a record track here. Encouraging news on the vaccine front. Many pharmaceuticals are in the final stage, Johnson & Johnson being one of them just this week.
I'm very excited about all of these vaccines. There probably will be a number of them out there, and we will have to wait and see which one really comes to market first and which one is able to be mass produced. Now, we talked about the fact that the Johnson & Johnson product, that vaccine, does not require it being frozen, which is a big, big plus in my mind. And according to their research, it only has to be given once. Now, with what we just said about mutations and mutating COVID-19, who knows? But the bottom line is, I think there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just not going to be right away.
Yeah. Holiday season, Dr. Mike, right around the corner. A lot of people looking to book their holiday trips. I know you're hearing it from your patients over and over. Is it safe to travel, or is this kind of the year where we skip the family get-together?
I have to be honest with you, I would not travel. In fact, I had this discussion with a patient yesterday. They wanted to go on a trip to Mexico. I think Mexico's awesome. But the bottom line is, with what we're hearing and seeing in the world with a second wave, with mutations of the virus, with the fact that it can be more contagious, forget about it. Are you kidding me? I don't think this is the time right now at all. I suggested to my patient yesterday, why don't you Zoom friends and family, and then when you get your vaccine, then be my guest. Go for it. Go travel. I can't wait. It'll be all good, but not right now.
Yeah. As we gear up for the fall, winter season here, are there ways to boost your immune system? I mean, would that make a difference in fighting off this virus?
Well, Thomas, we know that vitamin D deficiency increases your risk of getting COVID and having a severe reaction to it. So I would make sure that your vitamin D levels are up to snuff, and I would get as much rest as possible, and I would eat good foods. Those are the things that you can do. You exercise, you take care of your machinery just like you should even when there's not a pandemic going on. If you do all of those simple things, I think you will be in the best shape that you can possibly be. And remember that stress is a real negative. It releases cortisol, and that decreases your immune system. And by the way, we talked about hallucinations and things when it comes to COVID-19. Lots of people are having really bad dreams that don't even have COVID-19. And it comes from the stress and anxiety of being in a pandemic. So the bottom line is, we all need to get into some calming meditation approaches, eat right, exercise, make sure your vitamin D is okay. If you do those things, you're going to be all right.
Yeah, it can be difficult. We need to take that moment, though. Certain parts of the country, as we experience the cold, we crank up that heat. I know our nasal passages tend to dry out. Do you recommend the nasal rinse as you did with allergies?
I'm a big fan of the nasal rinse, and there's some data showing that it may actually decrease transmission of the virus, and it may actually help with you not getting it. What you do is you keep the nasal passages moist. I do the nasal lavage twice a day. I have bad sinuses, but I'm telling you, it really does a trick for most of my patients that have both seasonal allergies, sinus problems, and given the winter months coming, it will keep that nasal passage nice and moist and reduce your risk of getting COVID-19 based on theoretical data, all right? Not hard and fast, but it's not gonna hurt you, and I would do it.
All right. Our daily advice, Dr. Mike, as we head into the weekend on staying safe.
Stay the course, Thomas. Make sure you socially distance, you wear masks. Don't let your guard down. If you're going to any kinds of sporting events, remember, you need to wear your mask, especially if you're near other people. If you're sitting closer than 6 feet, you have to wear the mask. Make sure you do that, and we will get through this. We will all get through this together, and we will be okay.
We'll keep those words. Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine out of Philadelphia. Have a great weekend, Dr. Mike.
You as well, Thomas. You stay safe, my friend.
All right, our thanks to Dr. Mike there and the whole Fox 29 team for always providing that content to us daily to give our viewers an update on the very latest with the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to go out now to Florida here. This was just a little bit ago, but it was big news for Florida because they are moving into phase 3 of the reopening, and that means no limitations on restaurants. So we're going to take some sound here from the governor, Ron DeSantis, as he lets everyone know a little bit more about that phase 3 reopening, and it's starting today, like right now it's starting.
But before I do that, I just want to make some comments. We had a big unveiling of some proposed legislation on Monday in terms of maintaining law and order, public safety, and supporting the men and women who wear the uniform. And part of the reason we did that is some of the activity we see throughout the country. What we saw here in St. Petersburg the other night with mobs harassing innocent people who were just enjoying a meal at a restaurant is simply unacceptable. If you go out here in the state of Florida and you're sitting in a restaurant, you should be able to do that in peace without having some lunatic come up and yell in your face. I think that should be dealt with anyways, but our legislation will certainly do that. It's simply unacceptable to allow that type of behavior here in the state of Florida. And so for those law-abiding men and women who just want to live their lives, we got your back. More help is on the way. Today's announcement is something that we discussed a little bit yesterday. We had a Zoom roundtable with some real esteemed scientists from Stanford Medical School and Harvard Medical School, discussing a whole range of issues about the COVID-19 pandemic, but also specifically some of the mitigation measures in terms of businesses that have been done. In the state of Florida, we probably are the most open big state in the country. I mean, if you look, we've had theme parks operating for many months. Of course, the beaches, hotels, restaurants. We had some places in the Panhandle that had record summers. Other places did well. Some other places were a little slower, partially because of local restrictions. Some of them just from the natural lag in tourism that we've seen. But I think we've been able to put a lot of people back to work over the last few months, and then obviously have more to do. So today we have a lot of folks from the restaurant industry. They've been working very hard, have had operating under 50% capacity indoors. They've been doing a lot outdoors, but in Florida over the summer, that's not always the easiest. That will get a little bit better going forward as the weather cools. But in the state of Florida, we are today moving into what we initially called phase 3. And what that'll mean for the restaurants is that there will not be limitations from the state of Florida. And in fact, we're also cognizant about the need for business certainty. There have been some local closures and other types of restrictions. And so the order that I'm signing today will guarantee restaurants operate, will not allow closures. They can operate at a minimum of 50% regardless of local rule. And then if the local restricts between 50 and 100, they've got to provide the justification, and they've got to identify what the costs are involved with doing that are. And I think that that's important. This is a very difficult industry to succeed in. The margins aren't great. And if you go back to March, we were told 15 days to slow the spread. So that was, in Florida, we followed that. It was no dining restaurants, the bars, the gyms, no elective procedures, some of these things. And then they said, well, you know what, we need another 30 days. So 30 days to slow the spread. So we did that as well. And yet you have some people say, well, you can never do full what you want to do until there's a vaccine. Well, we don't know, hopefully. But now people are saying, hey, even if there's a vaccine, it's still going to take another year before you can operate appropriately. And I don't think that's viable. I don't think that that is acceptable. And so I think that this will be very, very important to the industry. And it also will be a recognition that they have worked as hard as anybody to create safe environments. In fact, the idea that government dictating this is better than them making these decisions so that their customers have confidence, I think is misplaced. And I've gone to many restaurants over the last many months, and they take this obligation seriously. They want customers to have confidence, and so they have every incentive to want to do that going forward. We're also saying in the state of Florida, everybody has an opportunity and the right to work. Every business has the right to operate. Some of the locals may be able to, they can do reasonable regulations, but you can't just say no. You can't say no after 6 months and just have people twisting in the wind. And so I think that that's another important principle. If you looked at what we did yesterday and listened to some of those experts, it's pretty clear that we use our resources best when we focus them on the people that are most vulnerable to COVID-19. And I think that that's readily apparent that that's the elderly population. CDC recently revised and put out a new best estimate for the fatality rate for infections. An estimation, not cases, because there are way more infections than documented cases. And here's what they have. So if you look under 20, the survival rate, if you're infected with COVID-19, according to CDC, is 99.997%. If you're between 20 and 49, the survival rate is 99.98%. So under 50, that is less than seasonal influenza in terms of the severity. Now, when you get to 50 or 69, 99.5%, that's more severe than seasonal influenza. It's probably real severe, probably akin to a real severe flu. And then, of course, 70 plus, 94.6% survival rate. That is really, really significant. And that is where most of the hospitalizations and the mortality have come. And so those experts agreed, and we've always tried to do this in Florida, and we're going to continue. But our focus is really going to be on those folks who are most at risk. Part of that is what we're doing with long-term care and nursing homes, but really it goes beyond that into the broader senior community. We're going to be able to do more things with some of the new testing that's come out. But then, of course, also knowing your risk and being able to govern yourself accordingly, which many folks in that age group have done a really good job of in Florida over the last many months. So that's what we're looking at. So rather than trying to close things, what you want to do is have an age-specific strategy that really focuses on mitigating exposures and mitigating infections from the people that are the most at risk for this. And so if you take a step back and look at where Florida is in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, from July, at the beginning of July was the peak of infections. The ED visits peaked between July 7th and July 14th. Kind of a plateau, and then it's kind of gone down ever since. The hospitalizations peaked on July 21st. So that's over 2 months ago. And what have we seen since the third week of July? We've actually seen more economic activity, more interaction. Schools have opened. All the theme parks are open. More people have visited. And what has happened with hospitalizations? COVID-positive hospitalizations are down 76%. Since the July peak. ICU hospitalizations are down 72%. since the July peak. Daily admissions for people getting admitted for either confirmed or suspected COVID has declined by 81% since that mid-July peak, and the ED visits for COVID-like illness are down close to 80% as well. Here in Pinellas County, I think in many ways Pinellas saw the increase hit before some of the other parts of the state, and they've definitely seen the decline go down quicker than many other parts of the state. The number of tests, the percentage of tests that come back positive in Pinellas County has been below 4% for 2 weeks. And if you know anything about these PCR tests, at least 1% are probably just false positives. Some of the other ones, if the people aren't symptomatic, may be picking up dead virus. That's a very low number for Pinellas County. Hospitalizations in Pinellas County have decreased by 79% since the July peak, and daily admissions to the hospital in Pinellas have declined by 82% since the peak. Individuals showing up for the ER to the ED with COVID-like symptoms has decreased by more than 80% since the first week of July. And so I think what we've seen is we've been able to put more people back to work. All these indicators have gone down since July. You know, the end of June and July, were tough not only for Florida but across the Sun Belt. But you've seen steady progress going in this direction. And so we need everyone to be able to go to work. We need people to be able to be in school. We have over 1.1 million students who are in person having instruction. We've had schools open since at least August 11th in parts of the state, and certainly at least a month almost every place in the state except southern Florida, although Palm Beach County is open for in-person, and Broward and Miami-Dade are going to start soon. So that's very important. Our universities have people that are in person, the students. That's important to do. We have college sports. We have high school sports. Of course, the NFL with fans in most parts of the state, which I think is great. So I'm glad to be able to stand with some folks here who've been working very hard under very difficult circumstances. I think that I'm going to have a couple of them come up and want to say some stuff, but I think this will be, really significant for them in terms of the way forward here. So, is anyone who wants to come up and talk about anyone from the restaurant? Go ahead. Yep.
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend Governor DeSantis for his leadership throughout this pandemic. I've said multiple times to friends and family how truly grateful I am that he's the steward of our state. Today is a big step for us as restaurateurs in the road to recovery. We employ almost 500 people pre-pandemic, so it's been a long road, but we're working hard to get back on, and I think that this gives us a real fighting chance. So I'm very grateful for you, and just grateful that we had the opportunity to be here and see this through.
Tell me about your place, your restaurant, where you're at located.
Yeah, so we're a 38-year-old business located down on Indian Rocks Beach. We have multiple other locations along the coastline and a few inland. So we were very exposed at the beginning of this pandemic, and we're fortunate to be where we are today. And we still got a long way to go, but this is a very big step in the right direction. Yes. Krabby Bill's Indian Rocks Beach.
What's your name? I'm sorry. Tell us your name.
My name is JT Corrales. I'm the Director of Business Development.
Well, Governor, echoing JT there, I want to thank on behalf of the industry, number one, you recognizing how hard they've worked to stay in business. There's probably never been a more challenging time for our
economy and the business community as we've navigated this pandemic, and I appreciate the business leaders standing here with us. What I'd like to share with you all today is because of these decisions and the measured approach starting at the plaza level, the governor's office, and then through the legislature, we saw our revenue collections for the state of Florida, our August collections, and they were $177 million over post-pandemic estimate. So we are already on the path to recovery, and what the governor is doing here today is just going to continue that path and perhaps accelerate it. So it's my pleasure to be here with all of you, and again, thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is John Vasquez, President of Suncoast Police Benevolent Association. Just want to make it clear that Suncoast Police Benevolent Association and its members, the men and women in uniform, wholeheartedly support the right for peaceful protest. That's what we're here to protect the Constitution for those men and women. We appreciate and we need laws passed to help protect the men and women in uniform, to help protect.
All right, everybody, we've been listening to that update in Florida. It's big for the restaurants there for a while. They've been at 50% capacity, 25% capacity before that. Now they have 100% capacity that they can do because of the governor greenlighting that phase 3 of the COVID-19 reopening plan. I do want to now go out. We first brought this to you about 20 minutes ago when it was happening, this police shooting investigation. We have now an update. We have our very own Rick Davis there at the scene providing us an update there. Rick, what can you tell us here?
Hey, Mike, not a lot of information being confirmed just yet by authorities. We are hearing reports of an officer-involved shooting near University in Evergreen, which is on the border of Tempe and Mesa, that may involve authorities from the Mesa Police Department. Still waiting to get that confirmed. But we did speak to a pool worker that was working on some pools in this area, saw undercover officers with their guns drawn, and he actually took a photo that we have. I tweeted it out, and he heard at least 8 gunshots, and the next thing you know, this whole area is cordoned off. And I don't know if you have aerials from Skyfox, but you can see there were multiple shots fired up under an awning in this area. So we're waiting for information from authorities about what actually transpired to make it official.
Yeah, Rick, we're also showing your shot as well as the Skyfox aerials, and you're right. It was just it was a large presence of a scene because we just saw so many evidence markers there on that parking lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, I actually saw some of that video from Skyfox, and just looking at all the different shell casings there, those officers fired shots, or someone fired at them, and we're trying to figure out exactly, officially, but it looks and appears to be an officer-involved shooting. Just a crazy scene right now out here on the border of Tempe, Mesa, right off of University in Evergreen.
And Rick, we saw that you were interviewing some people earlier. What did they have to say?
Yes, there's a gentleman named Peter Morales. He's working in this area with a crew, and actually part of his crew was his son, and they had to take cover inside their truck. And he's the one that snapped a couple pictures, then he provided them to us to share, showing how dangerous it was to see the officers with their guns drawn. And they dug down in the vehicle, and at that time they heard at least 8 gunshots. He couldn't remember how many, but at least 8 that he counted as he took cover.
Yeah, and Rick, maybe you could explain to our viewers here, when there is a police shooting investigation, that takes a while for the investigation, right? I mean, because another agency might have to do all the paperwork, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to realize that authorities, when they're involved in officer-involved shootings, they bring out separate detectives for different areas of the investigation to make sure they're as transparent as possible when they release details to the public, so that we get exactly what happened and everybody understands and they can realize this is how it went down, for transparency reasons and for the investigation if it ends up in court.
Absolutely. Well, Rick, thank you so much for giving us this update here. We've been taking the aerials as well as your shot as well. So be safe out there as you continue to get more information throughout the day there for your story. We appreciate it.
Okay, Mike.
And that was Rick Davis there reporting there from the scene in Tempe, everybody. I do want to go out to some other news here in Atlanta. Look what we have. Air Force One just touching down right now. This is a busy day for President Trump on the campaign trail. He just came back from Jacksonville, Florida. Now he's in Atlanta. Then he goes from Atlanta to D.C., And then you think, oh, is he going to be done when he gets back to? No, he's not even going to the White House. He's going to his hotel for a conference there in a fundraiser. And then he's going out to Virginia for a rally tonight. That's happening at 9 o'clock Eastern. He's not expected to get back to the White House until about 10:30, 11 o'clock today. So a busy day. And can you tell that we're less than 40 days away from the election? Yeah, it kind of does feel like that, too, especially, oh, yeah, Tuesday, the big debate. Day one of that debate. Of course, we will feature it for you on NewsNOWFox.com in its entirety. Joe Biden and President Trump is expected to be very in demand to watch that, especially the first one. A lot of people want to be watching that one, and we will definitely be carrying it for you right here on News Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Pace. Thanks so much for joining us here as we continue to take those live feeds from across the country as they're happening. We're about 40 minutes away from President Trump to be making some remarks in Atlanta. Of course, we'll bring that to you in its entirety when that does happen. In the meantime, everybody, I do want to go out just for a little bit more from the governor there in Florida, giving that update on the reopening of the restaurants at 100% capacity now. And then once we do get the president, we will bring that to you as well. And of course, if any breaking news does sprinkle in before that, we got you covered there as well.
Put out about that. And I've spoken with physicians around the state where they have people in ICU for heart who, if they had gone in earlier, would never have reached that stage. So we want to be discussing that. We also want to be discussing the importance of getting things like cancer screenings. The cancer missed screenings is not going to show up today, next month, may not even show up next year. But you can bet it's going to start showing up if this continues several years into the future. So very, very important. Also, immunizations for children. When the pandemic hit and the fear factor reached its zenith in March, you started to see a big decline in parents who were taking their children to be vaccinated. And we see this COVID chart. COVID is less dangerous for young kids than seasonal influenza, and certainly much dangerous than other diseases that they have good vaccinations for. So we definitely want to get the message out for folks to start doing that. Also, mental health. There was a CDC study that was cited by, I think, Dr. Bhattacharya from Stanford yesterday, where I think it was between 18 and 24, 25% of our folks between 18 and 24 reported having depression or some signs of mental health problems. That is a huge issue that needs to be combated. We've worked also already, and we're going to do more. There was a lot of progress that had been made on some of the drug abuse, like opioids. I think that's probably progress that was erased starting in March, and so we're probably back to where we were and need to start working forward. But I do think that the more society is functioning, the more people that have jobs, the more businesses that can succeed, the more opportunities for parents to send their kids to school. I think a lot of those other things become easier to deal with. But let's not make any mistake about it. Focusing on only one pathogen without all these other things is not an effective public health strategy. With that, take some questions.
Governor, how does this transition in phases affect other industries outside of hospitality and restaurants?
It really doesn't very much because we've had everything open. There may be some local restrictions in some parts of southern Florida about doing some of the, like a banquet hall or something. And again, what the order is going to say, they have a right to operate. You can insist on certain regulations, and obviously I think you're probably going to see a different approach in southern Florida than you will in the Panhandle on some of that, and I think that that's fine. But I think everything has been open before this order. This just allows the restaurants to really be able to do this, I think, in a way that makes, I was in Dunedin with a guy that owns this small restaurant. It's more of an upscale deal. You walk in, it's just a room with seats. And it's like, he doesn't get enough traffic to really do half, but you could fill it, and it's not like it's really crowded. I mean, it's fine. And so some of these things, I think, were a little too mechanical. They have every incentive to provide a good environment for their customers, and there's going to be some customers that Maybe they say they only want to do outdoor. They're going to have to provide a safe outdoor. Maybe they'll do indoor as long as they have precautions that they think. And I think that's the best way to do it. But it's not really a one-size-fits-all, because I went into some restaurants where they're following the rules, but quite frankly, it didn't make sense. They could have done more without really causing any type of major difference in terms of any type of a transmission.
Governor, how are large venues like Bucks games, Rays games, how are they impacted by Phase 3?
Well, they're not really impacted because I've supported that. And it's not a question of really government. It's really what the leagues have been comfortable with. I very much support the Bucks having fans. I think what the Dolphins did to start off, I think, was really great. The Jags, it's interesting. The Jags, they're allowing fans. They couldn't even sell out limited capacity, partially because I think some of the fans are concerned with some of the things that we've been seeing come out of the league. But so they can operate. Now, I fully understand, and we will work with them. They want to go slower more than anyone, so it's not like they want to have full capacity. But I think you can do much more than what's been done. Outdoor transmission has just not been a major factor. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean there aren't things that you can think about in some of these venues. But I'd like to see everyone have fans at some capacity, and then let's build going forward. One of the reasons I really wanted to have the Buck, well, two reasons. One, Tom's the quarterback. Everyone wants to watch Tom Brady and Gronk and all these great players. And I'll tell you what, and I don't know how much football I'm going to watch this year, but I definitely watch on Sunday. I mean, I'm going to keep watching them. And so I think people wanted to be there, which is good. But I also want to be able to show we're going to be able to host the Super Bowl in February. We expect to do a full Super Bowl, and we're going to show that we're going to be able to do that. I think they can still do that, and I know there's some issues about insurance and all these other things, and I respect that, and maybe we'll address that after the election here in Florida with the new legislature. But yeah, I think it's important. I also think we have musicians. They should be able to play, and they should be able to do some of this stuff, particularly on these outdoor venues. You can do it. You can do it safely. Again, right to work. That's uniform now in Florida. And so some of these people, we want to make sure they have an opportunity. I know some have been doing it, but I've had some folks ask me about certain restrictions. We didn't really have restrictions, but I think people were just concerned. I think you can get to yes on all this stuff, and there's certainly no legal prohibition for them doing fans. Yes, sir.
Sorry, do you have any concerns that completely opening will lead to another restriction?
So here's what I think. We've had way more activity over the last 2 months than we did over the prior two. We've seen big declines. At the same time, this is a virus that has confounded a lot of people. We're prepared if we see an increase. We're not closing anything going forward. But I think if you look at our hospital capacity, if you look at what we did to marshal the latest medications, if you look at what we've done to help with all the PPE and the testing and everything, we have the tools in place that we need. Is there going to be a true second wave? Understand, the Northeast wave was March and April. That was not our wave. Our Sun Belt all went in the June, July. And if you look at the epidemic curves from Los Angeles, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia, it's almost the same basic curve. Arizona is a little bit higher than us in terms of per capita mortality. Georgia, Florida, Texas, pretty close. There were all different reopenings, different policies. And so, and then Los Angeles, obviously, they were one of the most restrictive of any place, and they basically had this similar thing that we had to deal with. So I think we're ready to deal with it. But the question is has there been a second wave anywhere? I think we should prepare for that, but there has not yet been. What you see in Europe is a lot of cases, very few hospitalizations, but in the areas that you're seeing it, those are areas that weren't really affected the first time. So we'll be ready for it. I think people should still understand that the virus, it doesn't go away. I mean, even if you have a vaccine, it doesn't go away because the chance of the vaccine being 100% effective is very small. So it's going to be at a minimum endemic. And so that's why I think it's so important, to focus on the risk to the folks who are especially vulnerable for this. That's going to continue to be an issue. We're going to continue to be supporting our long-term care and nursing homes. And then also some of the things. So yesterday I was with the president, and anytime you get near them, they make you do a test. And I say, I'm not symptomatic. I don't need to do it, but they make you do it. Well, there's a new Abbott test that's like a card. You could actually like put it in your pocket, open it up. They do some swab, and it's an antigen test, 15 minutes. They're producing millions and millions and millions of those a week. So that gives us an opportunity to say, okay, it's been the case where if you have like a 20-year-old grandkid, you may not have wanted them if you're 80 years old, although many of the seniors do. I mean, it's interesting. When we did the visitation for the nursing homes, everyone was so happy because it's like, you know, some of these folks were telling us, I want to live to see my family. And when some of the family members came with the PPE and the mask, some of the residents said, take off your mask, I want to see you smile. So sometimes we think we know what folks want and that they're all so fearful of this. I think people have taken proper precautions, but I think a lot of people really want to be able to live. So, but we have the ability, though, if you want, you know, you could potentially have these 15-minute tests for you know, younger people who are going to visit older relatives and really try to use the resources to make sure that the folks who are older can do as much as possible, you know, with protections. And so I think we're in a much better position now than we were in March and April, but I think we're even in a better position June. I mean, we built up what we needed to do. We never had hospital capacity overrun or anything like that. We were prepared. Right now, if you look at our hospital capacity, I think we have 24% of all beds are empty and 23% of ICU beds are empty. That's actually not a good thing for hospitals. They want to run these at higher capacity than that. That's much more empty beds than before the pandemic began. Part of that, I think, is just the lagging willingness of people to go in and to seek the treatment they need. So we do want people to go in and do that. But I asked those experts, so we had Martin Kaldor from Harvard Medical School, Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, Mike Levitt from Stanford, who's a Nobel Prize winner. And I said, do you have any concern about hospital overrun, having watched this virus in different continents, different countries, and different U.S. states? Do you think it will overwhelm the medical system? They all said no, no, and no. And remember, when we did the 15 days to slow the spread, the whole reason was to buy time so that the hospitals weren't overwhelmed, which obviously would be bad for corona patients, but also all the other patients. And so I think the U.S. as a whole has clearly succeeded in doing that. I think our hospital system is completely capable of handling it. In fact, if anything, you know, the hospital needs more patients and some of these other reasons, and some of the other health reasons to be able to go. So, but I would just tell people, you know, the fact that you continue to move forward with the economy, it doesn't mean that you know, the virus disappears. And so people should just understand it's something that we're going to have to deal with. But just as all those experts said yesterday when we had our thing, doing that from a fetal position where society flounders, people are out of work, kids aren't in school, that is not going to work, and that's not the way forward for us.
So is this effective immediately? Local mask mandates?
So I don't address it directly. Actually, it's a good point. So what I did do in there is, just as an act of executive grace, all outstanding fines and penalties that have been applied against individuals are suspended. I think we need to get away from trying to penalize people for social distancing and just work with people constructively, you know, put out what you want, but to impose some type of penalty of either, some actually have jail sentences attached. I don't know if that's actually been done, but I looked at some of those. You know, but all these fines we're going to hold in abeyance and hope that we can move forward in a way that's more collaborative.
So is reopening right now? Does it start the moment that we leave here?
So, yeah, it's effective immediately.
And to be clear, it's full phase 3.
Phase 3.
Full phase
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that's a little bit different from what they had was, you know, because there have been some issues with these bars, what we said to the locals on that is, okay, the bars are status quo from what we have. If you want to go beyond the 50, you can authorize it and do it. We're not telling you have to, but we're not going to stand in the way of that. So that'll be a local decision if they want to try to do more capacity in some of the bars and pubs. And I'd imagine that you will see a difference of opinion on how that shakes out in different parts of the state, which is fine. And I think that working together on that makes a lot of sense.
The video you saw from downstairs, obviously that upset you. How do you envision law enforcement responding to those types of situations?
So what I think is, and as was said, you'll go out and protest until your heart's content. It's your right to stand for what you want. No one is going to begrudge that, even though, I mean, quite frankly, some of the stuff that's said in these protests about the people in uniform I find revolting. I don't agree with it. But nevertheless, that's what the country's all about, to be able to go up there and do that. The minute that crosses over from just peaceful assembly to where you're harassing somebody else or you're intimidating.
All right, so we were listening to Governor Ron DeSantis there in Florida talking about the big moment for Florida restaurant owners and really customers that there's no space limitations anymore right now in Florida. That is with the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic. I do want to take you now out to Atlanta here. This is where President Trump will be speaking in about 20 minutes. This is at the Black Economic Empowerment, the Platinum Plan, where President Trump will be speaking in just moments. Let's listen to a little bit of this right here on News Now from Fox.
Many other small businesses who desperately needed help with this same cry. President Donald J. Trump heard our cry. I'm giving you facts. He made it happen. Many minorities all across the state needed help. We needed additional unemployment. Our president made it happen. I know President Donald J. Trump economic record. And if he did it before, he can do it again. Help me with my speech, please. This is our time, people. My brothers and my sisters, ladies and gentlemen, this is our time for greatness and economic empowerment. President Donald J. Trump, take us back to the top. This is our time. God bless Atlanta, Georgia, and God bless our president, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much for having us once again. And to all my friends who are not from Georgia, welcome to Georgia. So Kelvin and I are not strangers to this stage, and we will continue to stand up and speak boldly as it relates to the many wins that have came from this administration regarding the Black community, because it is time. It is no secret that we are living in one of the most difficult times we've seen, especially in our lifetime. But under all the misinformation and the emotional responses, this has been a time of winning for the Black community. We have seen record low unemployment, HBCUs fully funded, families restored under the First Step Act, opportunity zones that came and provided better opportunities for our communities. And the pandemic has been a very difficult time, especially for businesses and families. However, one thing I can assure you is that President Trump stood by the small businesses. For 4 years, President Trump has stood with our business, our families, our communities. And by re-electing him, we will have a champion in the White House for another 4 years. So now, I will step aside and submit to my husband.
Well, I'll say welcome to Atlanta, because I'm from the A. Thank y'all. Well, my wife and I, we own a construction firm here. In fact, our headquarters is right across 285 on Powers Ferry from here. So we're right here.